If you think ancient civilizations were only primitive, this will completely change how you see history. Because buried inside a British museum storage drawer is a clay tablet that describes a world that shouldn't exist, and yet every detail on it points to something far bigger, older, and more advanced than anything we were taught. It begins in 1849 when British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard was excavating the ruins of Nineveh in northern Iraq. Deep inside the remains of the Great Library of Ashurbanipal, he recovered thousands of clay tablets, mostly dull administrative records, tax lists, royal orders, and trade logs. But one tablet stood apart. It was not placed with the others. It was buried beneath a collapsed wall, almost as if someone had hidden it on purpose before the destruction of the city. That tablet, now catalogued in the British Museum, was written in what scholars call High Sumerian, an older, more formal language usually reserved for sacred or historical records. Even at first glance, it didn't behave like the rest. Its writing style suggested it was either copied from something far older or preserved with extreme care across generations. And when translations finally emerged decades later, researchers were stunned into disbelief. The text didn't read like ordinary myth. It described a civilization that existed before a great global catastrophe. A world with vast populations, advanced knowledge of the stars, engineered infrastructure spanning continents, and cities connected across lands that no longer matched modern geography. Most disturbing of all, it claimed this civilization had been destroyed not in some ancient, distant prehistory, but roughly 2 centuries before the tablet itself was written. That places the described world around 2900 BC, meaning the Sumerians weren't speaking about gods or distant legends. They were, according to the text, describing something as recent to them as the 1800s are to us. At first, scholars dismissed it as symbolic mythology. But the structure of the tablet suggested otherwise. It was not fragmented or poetic. It was precise, divided into 12 structured sections, each tied to what the text called sky codes, celestial markers used to verify timing and events through astronomical reference points. For decades, those sky codes were ignored as numerology. But modern astronomy changed that interpretation. When researchers mapped those references to planetary and stellar positions, something unsettling emerged. The alignments were accurate, not loosely accurate, mathematically precise, within a degree of modern astronomical calculations. That level of precision would require centuries of continuous sky observation and advanced mathematical modeling far beyond what we believed early Sumerians possessed. And that raises the first contradiction. According to accepted history, ancient Mesopotamians tracked lunar cycles, some planetary movements, and used basic star charts for agriculture. But this tablet suggests far more. It describes a solar-based chronological system built on the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle lasting 25,920 years. Detecting that cycle requires observing tiny shifts in star positions across centuries. The Greeks are credited with discovering it thousands of years later. Yet this text claims the knowledge existed long before them, inherited from an even older civilization that predates the flood. The tablet divides time into 12 great ages, each lasting 2,160 years, forming what it calls the Great Wheel, a system eerily similar to the zodiac. But unlike symbolic astrology, this system was used as a historical record, time-stamping real events in a structured cosmic calendar. Then comes the population record. Code 2 of the tablet lists a global population of 340 million people before the flood. Not a metaphor, not a mythic exaggeration, an exact number. It describes 7 great lands and 144 coastal cities connected across a single global network. When those descriptions are mapped to paleogeographic data, they resemble a world where sea levels were significantly different, exposing land bridges now submerged beneath oceans. The next section becomes even harder to dismiss. Code 3 describes something called stone veins, a global infrastructure of roads spanning continents, deserts, and even ocean floors. These weren't trade paths or migration routes. They were engineered highways, built during a time when parts of the seabed were exposed. Then comes a precise timestamp. Code 4 identifies the moment of global collapse using planetary alignments involving Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus. When reconstructed using modern orbital simulations, the alignment matches a period around 2880 BC, within a margin of decades. The tablet claims this was the moment the world broke, when oceans rose and civilizations fragmented almost overnight. Code 6 lists where these survivors eventually regrouped. The descriptions align with early centers of civilization: Mesopotamia between rivers, Egypt along the Nile, the Indus Valley, river systems in East Asia, and regions of Mesoamerica. Each appears not as a first civilization, but as a reconstructed one built from scattered remnants of a prior world. Code 7 introduces sky teachers, figures who reintroduced agriculture, writing, and astronomy. Whether symbolic or historical, the tablet describes them not as gods, but as remnants of survivors carrying fragments of lost knowledge. These teachers vanish within generations, leaving behind incomplete systems that later civilizations misinterpret as divine gifts. Code 8 marks a second for getting the point where memory of the original world fully transforms into myth. From this stage onward, humanity rebuilds without knowing what came before. Code 9 explains the purpose of the tablet itself: preservation. It was written as a warning for future generations, ensuring that if another collapse occurred, someone might recognize the pattern and survive differently. Then comes the most controversial part. Code 10 claims the flood was not divine punishment, but a cyclical planetary event tied to Earth's geological instability. The tablet suggests that catastrophic shifts occur in repeating cycles driven by changes in Earth's crust and environmental systems. It even proposes a rough interval of 6,000 years between major destabilization events. Whether interpreted literally or not, modern science does acknowledge extreme geological and climatic shifts in Earth's past, though the causes and timing remain debated. Code 11 becomes the warning for the future. It describes a sequence of observable signs: planetary alignments, weakening magnetic fields, increased volcanic activity, and rapid ice melt. According to the tablet, these events occur within a 200-year window before another global destabilization. Today, the tablet remains stored in the British Museum, largely overlooked, categorized as mythology rather than history. But its contents continue to raise uncomfortable questions. If even a fraction of what it describes is rooted in real memory rather than fiction, then human history is far shorter and far more fragile than we ever imagined. And somewhere in that possibility lies the real tension of the tablet. Not whether an ancient civilization existed, but whether we are the first to forget it, or just the next in a repeating cycle that has already erased everything before us more than once.